This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. Hello, and welcome to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. Actually, before I get digging into today's topic, which is what comes out of failed launches and what to do about them, I want to share with you that if all has gone well behind the scenes, tomorrow will be the very first episode and the launch of my brand new sister podcast to Entrepreneurs Get Visible, Podcasting for Entrepreneurs, which is going to do exactly what it says on the tin. It's going to teach you how you can use audio to explode your personal brand, whether you have a podcast already, whether you're thinking about having one, or whether you've got one but you're not quite getting the results that you want, either financially or for your personal brand and lead generation. So you might want to go and head over for that show tomorrow. I would value your support. There's some amazing episodes that are coming out as part of that launch. So go and check that out tomorrow. So this is recorded, ready to be released right at the start of November. So if you are listening on the 1st of November, tomorrow, 2nd of November, 2021, go and check out my brand new podcast, Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. Today's episode, I'm sharing some stuff that I wouldn't share right while I was in the middle of going through this, because I wouldn't have been in the right headspace. And I feel that there's quite a lot of that in my content on these episodes recently. I'm in a good place in my business. I'm in a good place emotionally, and so it's easy for me to come back and talk to you about some of the impacts of when things haven't worked out for me. Specifically, when launches have failed, in inverted commas. First of all, what is a failed launch? Now, for me, that is when I haven't, by any stretch of the imagination, achieved the stats, the income, the target sales that I wanted to have. But sometimes I can actually see that something isn't going to work before I even deliver part of the model, be that a challenge or a masterclass, because my ads don't seem to be working. And that's a really frustrating place to be in. And in this episode, my intention is that if you have had a launch that has not worked well, and you've maybe made decisions about who you are or are not in business, or maybe you are in the middle of a launch that isn't as dramatically successful as you had hoped, that this is going to inspire you, motivate you, maybe educate you a little, so that you can move on and move past it. When I've had launches that haven't worked well, and I know I've ticked all the boxes, I've delivered great value, I've delivered great content, I have shown up, I've over-delivered. I'm confident in my process. I'm confident in the product. But for whatever reason, something hasn't worked. Be that I'm maybe targeting people who aren't going to purchase. Maybe they don't have that purchasing power. Maybe the offer that I have doesn't offer a strong enough or obvious enough promise or a result for them. Perhaps my Facebook ads haven't worked in the way that I hoped. Perhaps a competitor or someone offering a similar service or course or program is at launch at the same time, and maybe they have a much bigger audience and more clout. Maybe my messaging or my timing is off. Sometimes something can happen behind the scenes that takes my attention at the point of having to deliver a launch. Sometimes I know that I don't follow through in quite the way that I should, using should with inverted commas, because something else is going on in the business. Sometimes I see other people pulling away from the intense amount of visibility that a launch can give you, or they don't ride the launch out to the finish line for various reasons, and then are upset that they haven't got the results that they want. Now, I'm talking about this today because I'm quite far away from launching right now. I'm not in the thick of things. I've learned some lessons about launching in the last 12 months that I want to share with you. Actually, not just the last 12 months, probably the last 4 years since I've been in the online space. First of all, I never really understood the amount of moving components that go into a launch. So that would be warming the audience up for a long time, seeding the concept that what your course offers before you even tell them what it is for quite a long time in your social media content. Really getting out there and being known as the expert at what you do, nurturing a community, then potentially running a challenge or a masterclass, which doesn't just come out of nowhere. You've probably, if you're doing it in the best way possible, you've mapped out what's going into the challenge. You've been teasing people with the audience. You've built landing pages, opt-ins, nurture sequences, potentially video content to make sure that those you've brought in for the challenge or the masterclass actually make it to show up for the live delivery. So many moving parts. And also then the sales emails, the sales sequence, the close down sequence of emails right until you say, that's it, it's gone, no more. And then, of course, all of the graphics and all of the posts for social media. So a launch done well doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not a question of just saying, hey, buy my stuff, because that doesn't work. And this year, for whatever reason, I've had a few that at the start of my business, I'd have thought it was a staggering amount of money that I got as a result. But me and my business now, the results were not what I had expected. And I'm sharing some of this today because I'm seeing quite a lot of people feeling as I have at various stages with my launches. And what I want to say to you is that if you've had a launch that hasn't worked well, it does not mean that everything is all over. It means there's some shifts that need to be made. Whether that is in the product, service, offer that you're putting out there, whether that is in the audience that you want to sell to. Are you actually speaking to people who will purchase? And if you're not, how can you deliver what you want to deliver to a different audience who will pay? There's some messaging slightly, or maybe your masterclass isn't good enough. Maybe your sales page isn't good enough. Maybe your bonuses don't get people over the line. But what can come up for anyone whose launch doesn't get them the results they want? Whatever stage in business, and it can happen whatever stage in business you're at as well. I'm privileged enough to be part of a collective of women who are some of the most incredible entrepreneurs in the online space, really leading this field. And I've seen them talk about, well, we expected a $3 million launch and actually we only just made $500,000 or $750,000. And that might, to you listening right now, seem like mega money. How can you be disappointed with $750,000 launch? But if you've got team to pay and you were only planning to launch once or twice in the year and that was it, and you've got so many expenses in your business and team and wages, then that has a massive knock-on effect for you. And particularly if it's a launch that you've run before, you can often be left questioning, well, why? What happened? Everything was the same, so what happened? And the things that can come up, so that's one end of the cycle, if you like, where you're already really successful and expecting growth in your stats, in your final figures, in your numbers, in your audience figures, so that you can convert. Once you know the general figures in launching, then each time you run a launch, your expectation is that you're going to double. But this also, for me, when you're right at the start of your journey, and maybe you're launching for the first time, you're putting your offer out there, you're being really vocal and visible about that, and yet no one buys. Or sometimes it can feel worse if 1 or 2 people buy. And what then? When there isn't the group that you'd expected, that they'd expected, that they thought was part of the package, that they would get some community, what do you do then? And I've been in all sorts of situations with launches and supported other entrepreneurial buddies of mine through these scenarios. So the first thing is, what happens in those situations is a little bit of heartbreak. Heartbreak because there's some embarrassment, maybe some shame, some insecurity, lots of questioning. Why me? Why aren't I good enough? Why isn't my material good enough when I see these other people out there smashing it? What's going on with me? And that can actually cause you to retreat. And often in that is the fear. Why aren't I good enough? I'm not good enough. I'm rejected. I don't belong. I don't fit in. So you've got to, I think actually it's okay to sit in those feelings for a little while, as long as you know that that's part of the process and that it's normal to feel those things. And those things aren't actually indications that you have failed, because a launch that hasn't worked the way that you thought it would, always, every single time, has something better on the other side, in my experience. And not just for myself, but for my peers as well. Sometimes I've had a launch that hasn't been as magnificent as I had hoped. But when I look with a kind of bird, I always feel as though it's worked out in the best possible way. So yes, maybe in the immediate, I haven't got the results by getting, let's say, 30 people to come and pay £2,000 to work with me. I haven't got that 60k that I was expecting. But every single time when I allow myself to sit in the sense of, what is there for me to learn here? What can I take from this? What have I been ignoring? What nudges and impulses haven't I acted on because I've been focused on my launch? And every single time there is something important. So that knowledge could be, I need to intensify my efforts to grow my audience. I need to be giving out more free content so that people trust me. That knowledge could be, I'm speaking to the wrong people. I don't want to be working with people at this particular income threshold. I don't want to work with people who aren't ready to take action. So I need to change my messaging, or I need to change my offer so that it offers a better result for people. Or I need to change my pricing. There's always something greater. So I've had launches where on paper they look okay, but in terms of what I expected, they bombed. But within a week of the intense visibility that I've gone out there and delivered as part of the launch, I've had people approach me to work with me one-to-one, or another offer, which would be a much higher level of income. Or an opportunity has come up for me for a speaking engagement, which is paid, which then opens me up to a whole load of people that would be my ideal clients paying at a higher rate. Or I've been able to sit in the fact that actually there's a different course, there's a different offering that I've been ignoring because I've been focused at something lower end or higher end or whatever. The more you allow yourself to accept it's a little bit painful to be in that scenario of it not having worked, to feel that you're a failure, and then to notice that those stories are actually the very thing that holds you back, the sooner you can drop into, okay, what's next for me? How do I pick myself up? How do I turn this into a positive? How do I turn this into a powerful learning experience? And how do I how do I move forward from here? So for me, there's always been a powerful understanding about the next steps. But crucially, what I allow myself to do is rest after a launch. It's tiring and it does take it out of you, particularly when you don't then have the energy that you've expended, the effort that you've expended, and potentially the cost that you've expended if you've had to take on team to do things like create your sales pages or connect up some of the tech, or even to help you deliver. There's costs associated with those, and Facebook ads as well. Never mind those if you're using paid ads. But the faster you can acknowledge, okay, this wasn't right. I didn't listen to my intuition on this. I went ahead. Maybe there was someone else launching at the same time and our offers or our audience, there's too much crossover right now. What can you do to prevent that from happening again? There is always room for growth. Always room for growth. And what happens with me is I need to sit in that, it's not fair. Why me? I need to do that so that I hear myself being really negative, so I can catch that language and then begin to turn things on its head. I want you to know that in your creative brain, somewhere in the launch that hasn't worked for you the way that you had hoped, anticipated, dreamed of, is the seed of the next thing that could change your life. And as I'm saying that, what's popping into my head is Napoleon Hill. He talks about that. In the midst of every failure is the seed for potential growth. And what happens if it's the next thing? What happens if it's the way you deliver the same thing but next time that is actually the thing that gets you results? And I hope that it comforts you to know that everyone who does launches goes through this at some point. And it's the people that push through and learn that actually win. I hope that that encourages you to keep on going. Let yourself acknowledge what's gone on and let yourself learn and grow. And I know that this is something you're probably not sharing on social media, so you're probably afraid to let other people know this has gone on for you. You will when the time is right. This will become a powerful story for you. This will become something that you use to motivate and inspire other people if you let yourself grow. When we look at people like Richard Branson, for example, one of the most well-known entrepreneurs in the entire world, well, not every single one of his ventures or adventures has worked. But what's he done? He's gone on to the next thing and the next. His creative, adventurous spirit isn't dampened long term because he trusts in himself to keep on growing. And that's the mindset shift. And personally, I'm very much looking forward to masterminding with him on his private island in Necker this time next year. Actually, September in 2022, I shall be doing that, which is kind of incredible. I hope that if you've gone through a failed launch or you've had something that hasn't worked, you can identify what it is you need to do. It's not everyone else's fault. It's not the world's fault. The responsibility you can take for allowing yourself to take the next steps. And I'm sending you loads of love because it's probably a bit hard for you right now with your family, either not quite understanding why you're bothering anyway, why don't you get a proper job, or pitying you that it hasn't worked. Oh, ouch, that hurts too. Or that you don't feel that you can talk to anyone about it because it hurts and it smarts. And that's okay. I've got your back. If I can do this, you can too. Sending loads of love. Now, if you have got an idea that you want to get a podcast out there or you want to improve your podcast, go check out my new show tomorrow, Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.